Commander Susan Hart stood at the observation deck of the starship Intrepid, her eyes fixed on the swirling blue and green planet below. This was Azuria, home of the Azurians, an advanced alien species that had contacted Earth just 3 months ago. The first diplomatic mission to an alien world, and Susan had been chosen to lead it. The ship hummed softly around her as the descent sequence began. Susan felt her heart beating faster. This moment would change human history forever. First contact with a confirmed intelligent alien species. The reports from the advanced probes showed the Azurians were a predominantly female species with a complex social structure and technology far beyond what humans had achieved. Lieutenant Amy Clark joined Susan at the viewport, her face reflecting the glow of the alien world. "Commander, are you ready for this? The Azurians requested you specifically." Susan nodded, still not fully understanding why the aliens had asked for her by name after intercepting Earth's transmissions. Something about her genetic profile had interested them. That was all Earth Command had told her. The ship broke through the cloud layer, revealing a landscape of towering crystal structures and sweeping arches of some unknown material that glowed with internal light. It was beautiful and utterly alien. "Prepare for landing," announced the ship's AI voice. The diplomatic team assembled in the airlock chamber. Susan, Amy, and 3 other specialists chosen for their expertise in xenobiology, linguistics, and engineering. They wore the formal blue uniforms of the Earth Diplomatic Corps with no weapons as requested by their hosts. The landing was smooth, barely a tremor, as the ship settled onto a platform that seemed to be made of the same crystalline material as the surrounding structures. The airlock hissed open and a ramp extended downward. Susan took a deep breath and led her team forward into the alien air. It smelled like cinnamon and ozone, an odd combination that made her nose tingle. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth, making each step feel bouncy. A delegation waited at the bottom of the ramp. The Azurians were tall and slender, with skin that shimmered with a bluish tint in the strange light. They had 4 arms and large almond-shaped eyes that seemed to contain swirling patterns of light. Their heads were hairless, but adorned with what looked like living jewelry creatures that moved slowly across their skin. The tallest stepped forward, her upper arms extended in what Susan recognized from briefings as a gesture of peace. "Welcome, humans, to Azuria. I am High Matriarch Lyra." Her voice was musical, almost hypnotic. Susan bowed slightly as instructed. "High Matriarch, I am Commander Susan, Heart of Earth. We come in peace and friendship." The alien studied Susan with those swirling eyes. "You are the one whose genetic pattern interested us. There is something unusual about you, Commander. Something we have not seen in your species before." Susan maintained her diplomatic composure, though she felt a chill run through her. "Am honored by your interest, High Matriarch, though am not aware of anything unusual about my genetics." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "All will be explained. Come, your quarters have been prepared. We have much to discuss." The diplomatic team followed the Azurians into what appeared to be a transport vessel hovering above the ground. It moved silently through the crystal city. Susan noticed other Azurians, watching from various structures. Some looked curious, others seemed wary. The city was a marvel of engineering, with buildings that seemed to grow from the ground rather than being constructed. Bridges of light connected different structures, and what looked like flying creatures carried Azurians from place to place. High Matriarch Lyra spoke as they traveled. "Your planet has been observed for many cycles. We have watched your development with interest. You are young as a spacefaring species, but you have potential." Susan chose her words carefully. "Thank you. Our people are eager to learn and share knowledge. We hope this meeting will benefit both our worlds." The transport stopped at the base of a massive spiraling tower that seemed to reach into the clouds. "This will be your home during your stay." The High Matriarch gestured toward the entrance. "A formal reception will begin when the second sun sets. Rest and prepare yourselves." Susan and her team were shown to a suite of rooms unlike anything they had seen before. The walls seemed alive, shifting colors in response to their movements. Furniture grew from the floor, reshaping itself to accommodate human bodies. The windows provided a panoramic view of the alien city stretching to the horizon. Amy approached Susan when they were alone. "Commander, do you trust them? There was something in the way they looked at you. Susan stared out at the alien landscape. I don't know yet. But we're here to build trust. This is bigger than any of us. It's about the future of humanity. As the alien suns began to set, casting purple and orange light across the crystal city, Susan prepared for the reception. She couldn't shake the feeling that the Azurians had brought her here for reasons beyond simple diplomacy. Why had they been interested in her genetic profile? What did they want from humanity? And most importantly, what would this first contact mean for the future of both species? The second sun dipped below the horizon, and a musical tone echoed through their quarters. The reception was beginning. Susan straightened her uniform and led her team toward the sound of alien music and the beginning of a new chapter in human history. The reception hall was enormous, with a ceiling that seemed to open directly to the stars above Susan, and her team stood among hundreds of Azurians, all watching them with those strange, swirling eyes. Music, unlike anything human ears had heard before, filled the air. Notes that seemed to change color as they played. High Matriarch Lyra approached Susan, her forearms moving in complex patterns that Susan couldn't interpret. Commander Hart, we have prepared a celebration worthy of this historic meeting. The first official contact between our worlds. Susan smiled diplomatically. The honor is ours, High Matriarch. Your world is beautiful beyond our imagination. The alien gestured to a raised platform where several Azurians waited with what appeared to be musical instruments. The ceremony of recognition will begin soon. It is an ancient tradition when meeting new species. Susan noticed that many of the Azurians were now looking at her with increased interest, whispering among themselves. She leaned toward Lieutenant Amy Clark. Something feels off. Why are they all staring at me? Amy shrugged slightly. I noticed that too. It's like you're the main attraction. Not Earth. Before Susan could respond, the music changed, becoming more intense. The crowd parted as another Azurian approached. This one different from the others. Her skin had a golden shimmer rather than blue, and she wore elaborate living jewelry that crawled across her shoulders and head. Her eyes were deeper, somehow containing what looked like galaxies in motion. High Matriarch Lyra bowed deeply. The Supreme Matriarch, Nera, ruler of all Azuria. Susan and her team quickly bowed, following protocol. The Supreme Matriarch moved directly to Susan, ignoring the others. She reached out with one slender hand, almost touching Susan's face but stopping just short. So you are the one. The Supreme Matriarch's voice resonated in a way that seemed to bypass Susan's ears and speak directly to her mind. After so many cycles, the pattern returns. Susan maintained her composure, though confusion and a strange sense of recognition swept through her. I'm not sure I understand, Supreme Matriarch. The alien ruler made a gesture, and the entire hall fell silent. The human does not know Lyra. You did not tell. Her High Matriarch Lyra lowered her head. We thought it best to confirm before revealing the truth. The Supreme Matriarch turned back to Susan. Commander Hart, your genetic pattern matches one we have seen before, one that has not existed in this galaxy. For 50,000 years, you carry the bloodline of the architects. A murmur ran through the crowd. Amy looked at Susan with wide eyes. The architects. The briefings mentioned something about an ancient species that the Azurians revered. Susan felt suddenly lightheaded. There must be a mistake. Inhuman, completely human. The Supreme Matriarch made a sound like crystal bells. I'm sure you believe that. But the truth is more complex. The architects visited Earth long ago, before your recorded history. They left their mark in subtle ways. Their genetic pattern lies dormant in less than 1 in a billion humans. You, Commander, are a direct descendant. Susan struggled to process this information. This is why you contacted Earth. Why you asked for me, specifically. The alien ruler nodded. The pattern has awakened in you. The first human in whom it has fully expressed itself. We detected it in your transmissions. A genetic beacon we have been waiting for. High Matriarch Lyra stepped forward. The architects were the greatest species this galaxy has known. They built the network that connects all worlds. They uplifted many species, including our own. Then they vanished, leaving only prophecies that one day their descendants would return. Susan looked at Her team, who appeared as shocked as she felt. This is difficult to believe. I have no special abilities, no knowledge of these architects. The Supreme Matriarch gestured, and a section of the floor became transparent, revealing what looked like a vast machine beneath the building that will change tonight. Commander, the awakening ceremony will activate the dormant knowledge within you. Amy stepped forward protectively. Wait, what exactly does this ceremony involve? Is it safe? The alien ruler fixed those galaxy eyes on Amy. It is necessary. The human must remember. The fate of many worlds depends on it. Susan felt a chill run through her body. Supreme Matriarch, I appreciate the significance this holds for your people, but I need to understand more before agreeing to any ceremony. For the first time, something like approval showed in the alien's expression. Caution, wisdom. These are traits of the architects. You are right to question. Come see what lies beneath this chamber. What has waited for you for 50,000 years? The Supreme Matriarch led Susan to a spiral staircase that descended through the transparent floor. Amy moved to follow, but was stopped by High Matriarch Lyra. Only the descendant may enter the Chamber of Awakening. Susan looked back at her team, then made a decision. This is why we came here, to learn to discover Ilgo but maintain communication at all times. She tapped her translator device, ensuring it would transmit back to the team. The descent seemed to take forever. The staircase spiraled down into depths that shouldn't have been possible given the building's height. Susan realized they were traveling deep underground. The air grew cooler and began to glow with a soft blue light. They finally reached a massive chamber dominated by a structure that defied human architecture. It seemed to fold in on itself in impossible ways, made of a material that was neither solid nor liquid, but something in between. It pulsed with light that responded to their presence. The Chamber of Awakening, the Supreme Matriarch announced, built by the architects before their departure. It has waited for one with the active pattern. Susan approached the structure, cautiously feeling a strange resonance as she drew near. What am I supposed to do? The alien ruler gestured to a platform at the center. You will stand there. The chamber will do the rest. It will awaken the memories, the knowledge that lies dormant in your genetic code. Susan stared at the platform, her heart pounding. What if I'm not who you think I am? What if this is a mistake? The Supreme Matriarch tilted her head. The chamber recognizes the pattern. It will not activate for any other. If you are not the descendant, nothing will happen. Susan took a deep breath and stepped onto the platform, immediately feeling a vibration through her entire body. The structure around them began to pulse faster. Light swirled around her, lifting her slightly off the ground. She gasped as images flooded her mind. Stars, galaxies, worlds she had never seen. Knowledge in a language she somehow understood. Above in the reception hall, Amy and the team watched through the transparent floor as Susan was enveloped in swirling light. High Matriarch Lyra stood beside them. The awakening has begun. If she is truly the descendant, your commander will soon remember what the architects knew. The secrets that could save us all. Amy watched with growing concern. What exactly are these secrets, and save you from what? The High Matriarch turned, those swirling eyes toward her. From extinction, Lieutenant. From the darkness that comes. Susan floated in a sea of light, her mind expanding beyond anything human consciousness was meant to contain. Images, knowledge, understanding, all pouring into her like a flood. She saw worlds being born and dying, stars exploding into life and fading, into darkness. She saw the history of a species so advanced they had transcended physical form. The architects, they had seeded the galaxy with life-uplifting, promising species, guiding evolution across thousands of worlds. Earth had been one such. Experiment humans carried fragments of architect DNA dormant and inactive for millennia. Until now, until Susan. She saw the threat that had caused the architects to disappear. A darkness between galaxies. Something vast and hungry that consumed civilizations. Something that was coming back. The vision shifted, showing her massive machines hidden throughout the galaxy. Defense systems dormant for 50,000 years, waiting for the proper genetic key to activate them. Susan understood now why the Azurians had sought her out. They needed these defenses. The darkness was returning. With a gasp, Susan found herself back on the platform, the swirling light receding. The knowledge remained within her mind, organized and accessible as if she had always known. She looked at the Supreme Matriarch with new understanding. "I remember," she whispered. "I know what they were, what they did, why they left." The alien ruler bowed deeply. "Then you know what must be done. The network must be reactivated. The defense grid, brought online before the darkness arrives." Susan nodded, feeling the weight of this new responsibility. "I need to contact Earth. Explain what I've learned. The entire human race needs to prepare." The Supreme Matriarch led Susan back up the spiral staircase. "There will be time for that. But first you must activate the beacon here on Azuria. It will signal the other systems that the Descendant has awakened." They emerged back into the reception hall, where Susan's team waited anxiously. Amy rushed forward. "Commander, are you all right? What happened down there?" Susan looked at her friend, seeing her with new eyes, both human and something more. "I saw the truth, Amy. About our past. About what might be our future." She turned to High Matriarch Lyra. "We need to activate the beacon." The High Matriarch gestured toward a doorway. "Follow me." "The activation chamber is nearby." Susan turned to her team. "I need you to send a message to Earth. Tell them I'm safe, but that everything has changed. We need to prepare for contact with the other worlds and the network." Lieutenant Laura Nelson, the communications specialist, nodded. "What exactly should we tell them?" Commander Susan considered her words carefully. "Tell them that we're not alone. Tell them that humanity is part of something greater than we ever imagined, and tell them to prepare for both wonders and dangers beyond our understanding." Susan followed the Azurian leaders toward the activation chamber. Amy fell into step beside her commander with all due respect. "Are you sure about this?" "You've changed in the last hour." Susan smiled reassuringly. "I'm still me, Amy. Just more. I can see the connections now between all life in the galaxy. I understand our place in it, and I understand the threat that's coming." Activation chamber was smaller than Susan had expected. A simple room with a pedestal at its center. The pedestal held what appeared to be a crystal similar to the architecture of the city, but darker, more dense somehow. High Matriarch Lyra gestured to the crystal. "The beacon has been dormant since the architects departed. Only one with their genetic pattern can reactivate it." Susan approached the pedestal, feeling drawn to the crystal. As she reached out, her hand began to glow with the same light that had enveloped her in the Chamber of Awakening. The crystal responded, rising slightly from the pedestal and spinning slowly. The Supreme Matriarch spoke softly. "Place your hands on it, Commander. Let the connection form." Susan placed both hands on the crystal, feeling a surge of energy through her body. The crystal began to glow brighter, spinning faster. Words in a language she now understood formed in her mind. She spoke them aloud, her voice resonating with power she didn't know she possessed. The crystal exploded into light, shooting a beam upward through the ceiling and into the sky. Susan could see in her mind the signal spreading outward, touching other beacons on distant worlds, awakening them one by one. A network forming, spanning the galaxion. The observation deck of the intrepid Lieutenant Laura Nelson was recording her message to Earth when the beam of light erupted from the Crystal City. The ship's sensors went wild, detecting energy patterns unlike anything in human science back. In the activation chamber, Susan removed her hands from the crystal, now glowing steadily. "It's done. The network is awakening. The other worlds will respond." The Supreme Matriarch bowed deeply. "The prophecy is fulfilled. The Descendant has returned at the time of greatest need." Susan turned to the alien ruler. "I need to know everything about the darkness when it will arrive. How much time we have to prepare." High Matriarch Lyra gestured to a wall which became transparent, revealing what looked like a war room. Azurian technicians moved around displays showing star systems and energy readings. "Our scientists have been tracking its approach. For centuries, we thought it was merely a void between galaxies, but then we began to lose contact with outlying worlds. The Supreme Matriarch continued. We believe it will reach the outer systems within one of your Earth years. Without the Architect Defense Network, we cannot stop it. Susan studied the displays, understanding the alien technology as if she had worked with it her entire life. We need to activate all the defense stations, not just the beacons, and we need to warn every world in its pathemy who had followed them into the war room, looked at the displays with growing concern. This darkness, what exactly is it? Susan turned to her. It's a consciousness of sorts. Ancient, possibly older than the architects themselves. It feeds on energy. All energy, including the energy of living beings and civilizations. The architects fought it to a standstill 50,000 years ago, but couldn't destroy it. So they created the defense network and seeded their DNA through selected species, knowing that when it returned, someone would carry their knowledge. High Matriarch Lyra approached a console. The activation of the beacon will draw representatives from other worlds. The Architect Network included 27 species across the galaxy. Some may have fallen in the intervening years, but those who remain will come. Susan nodded, feeling the knowledge unfold. In her mind, Earth needs a seat at that table. We need to prepare our people for contact with multiple alien species, and we need to prepare them for war. The Supreme Matriarch placed one of her 4 hands on Susan's shoulder. You understand the gravity of what comes, Commander. Many of your people will not. They will fear, doubt, resist. Susan sighed. I know, but humanity has faced extinction before. We've survived ice ages, plagues our own destructive tendencies. We'll survive this too. But first, I need to return to Earth. I need to convince our leaders. High Matriarch Lyra made a gesture of negation. That is not possible, Commander. The activation of the network has begun. The representatives will arrive within days. You must be here to meet them, as the descendant only you can authorize the full activation of the defense grid. Susan felt torn between her duty to Earth and her new responsibility to the galaxy. But the beam from the beacon solved her dilemma. Across the planet, communication systems activated, transmitting the signal to Earth and beyond. The message was simple, clear, and in every human language the architects have returned. The darkness comes. Prepare. The days that followed were a blur of activity. Susan found herself at the center of an interstellar gathering, unlike anything humanity had imagined. Ships began arriving in Azurian space within hours of the beacon's activation, vessels of designs that defied human understanding. Some organic and living, others built of energy rather than matter. All responding to the call Earth had responded to. After the initial shock and disbelief, Admiral Sharon Rogers had been dispatched with 3 additional ships to join the intrepid. Susan spent hours in communication with Earth leadership, explaining what she had learned, trying to prepare humanity for its new role in galactic affairs. Now Susan stood in the Great Hall of Convocation, a massive structure that had grown from the Crystal City overnight specifically to host the gathering of species representatives from 17 worlds, had arrived so far, each with their own appearance, language, and culture. The Azurians had provided translation devices that somehow made communication possible. Amy stood beside Susan, watching as a delegation of beings that appeared to be made of living fire entered the hall. These must be the Parolians the briefings mentioned. They live on a world orbiting a blue giant star. Susan nodded, feeling the architect knowledge provide context. Their civilization is over 30,000 years old. They were one of the first species uplifted by the architect's admiral. Rogers approached, looking overwhelmed. Commander Hart, I still can't believe any of this. A week ago, our biggest concern was establishing diplomatic relations with one alien species. Now we're in the middle of a galactic coalition preparing for war with some kind of cosmic entity. Susan smiled sympathetically. I know, Admiral, it's a lot to process, but the threat is real. The darkness has already consumed 3 outlying systems. The architects built the defense network for exactly this scenario. The Admiral frowned. You speak of these architects as if you know them personally. The medical team says your brain activity has changed your DNA too. Is that why all these species look at you with such deference? Before Susan could respond, High Matriarch Lyra approached. The convocation will begin soon. Descendant, all 17 species have arrived. Susan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. The great convocation chamber can seat representatives from all species. The architects designed it that way. Long ago. The Admiral raised an eyebrow. You couldn't have known that from the briefings. Susan sighed softly. The knowledge is in me now, Admiral. It's hard to explain, but I can access information the architects left behind. Their history, their technology, their plans for the defense. Network Admiral Rogers studied her face carefully. You understand what Earth Command is concerned about? That you've been somehow compromised, influenced by alien technology. Susan met her gaze steadily. I'm still human, Admiral. I'm still loyal to Earth. But I'm also the only one who can activate the defense network. And right now that's the only thing standing between all sentient life and extinction. The Admiral nodded slowly. I hope you're right, Commander. For all our sakes, a tone sounded throughout the hall, signaling the beginning of the convocation. Susan took her place on the central platform, surrounded by representatives from all 17 species. She recognized them somehow, knowing their histories, their strengths, their roles in the coming conflict. The Supreme Matriarch spoke, her voice amplified throughout the chamber. The descendant has awakened. The network responds. The darkness approaches. We stand at the precipice of night, but we are not without hope. Susan stepped forward, feeling the eyes of hundreds of alien beings upon her. I am Susan, Heart of Earth. I carry the pattern of the architects, but I am also human. She paused, letting her gaze move across the gathered representatives. I have activated the beacon network. The defense grid awaits our command, but it cannot succeed without all of you. Each world in the network was chosen for a reason. Each species has a role to play. A tall being with crystalline skin spoke, its voice like wind through chimes. How do we know this human truly carries the pattern? The architects left no images of themselves, no descriptions. The Supreme Matriarch gestured, and the floor of the convocation chamber became transparent, revealing the same strange architecture Susan had seen in the Chamber of Awakening. The descendant has passed the tests. She has activated the beacon. The knowledge flows through her. Another representative, a being that seemed to shift between gaseous and solid form, spoke. Can she activate the primary defense grid? That is the true test, Susan. Step to the edge of the platform. I can. But I will need coordination from all your worlds. The defense grid is not centralized. It's distributed across 27 systems, each with a key component. A murmur ran through the gathered species. Susan, continued, the architects designed it this way to ensure no single failure could compromise the entire network. But it means we must work together. She gestured, and holographic displays appeared around the chamber showing the network. Each node is a defense station. Each connection a faster-than-light communication link. Together they form a barrier that can contain the darkness. Admiral Rogers watched in amazement as Susan manipulated the holographic display with the ease of someone who had used the technology her entire life. How did she know how to do that? She whispered to Amy. Amy shook her head. I don't know, but she's still the commander. I've served with for 3 years. Something has been added to her, not taken away. The convocation continued for hours as Susan explained the nature of the threat, the capabilities of the defense network, and the role each species would play. The Perolians would provide energy to power the main nodes. The crystalline Lemurians would amplify and focus that energy. The Azurians would coordinate communication between worlds. Humans, with their adaptability and determination, would serve as troubleshooters, moving between systems to repair and maintain the network. As the planning session concluded, Susan felt exhaustion creeping in. The architect knowledge was vast, but accessing it took a toll on her human physiology. She swayed slightly on the platform. High Matriarch, Lyra noticed immediately. The descendant needs rest. The integration of knowledge requires recovery time. Susan was led to her quarters, now located in a tower near the convocation chamber. As soon as the door closed behind her, she collapsed onto the strange living furniture that adjusted to support her. Amy entered a few minutes later, carrying what passed for food on Azuria Commander. You need to eat. Something about that knowledge is burning through your calories at an incredible rate. Susan accepted the food gratefully. How are the others handling all this? Amy sat beside her. The Admiral is in continuous communication with Earth. The rest of the team is working with the Azurian scientists trying to understand the defense technology. She paused. You really believe this is going to work? That we can stop this darkness? Susan nodded slowly. The network was designed specifically for this threat. The architects spent millennia developing it. They wouldn't have gone to all this trouble if they didn't believe it would succeed. Amy studied her commander's face. You've changed, Susan. I don't just mean the knowledge or the abilities. Something deeper. Susan was quiet for a moment. I see things differently now. The connections between all life. The patterns that bind the galaxy together. We humans have always thought ourselves alone, special, but we're part of something so much larger. A tapestry of consciousness spanning billions of years. She smiled sadly. And now I have to help defend that tapestry from something that wants to unravel it completely. A soft tone sounded throughout the quarters, and a holographic display appeared showing a massive vessel entering the Azurian system. Unlike the other ships that had arrived, this one was enormous, dwarfing even the largest Azurian structures. Susan stood immediately, recognizing the ship with her architect knowledge. The Vanguard. It's the Narration vessel. I wasn't sure they had survived. Amy looked at the display. Who are the Narians? Susan was already moving toward the door. They were the closest to the architects, the most advanced of the uplifted species. They were entrusted with the central command codes for the defense grid. We need them. As Susan hurried toward the landing platform, Amy followed, trying to keep pace. The Admiral joined them, her face showing concern. Another alien species commander. How many more are coming? Susan didn't slow down. The Narians are different, Admiral. They were the architects' most trusted allies. If they've survived, it changes everything. It means we have a real chance.